You're about to hear a story that proves one truth. When a company forgets your value, it's already lost more than it knows. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are you doing right now? He had already started quietly trimming away part of my quarterly bonus when I stepped into his office, holding a plain vanilla cupcake that was as tired as the fluorescent lights above us. It was his birthday, something I knew only because I managed his calendar, and I forced a friendly smile like it was part of my job description. For the man who approves our paychecks, I said, setting the cupcake down like a peace offering. He chuckled, a strained mechanical sound, and motioned for me to sit. Have a seat. Got something entertaining for you. What he called entertaining was a color-coded printout of my quarterly performance. 61% of the company's revenue traced back to my work, yet the sheet in his hand listed me as responsible for barely 41. My biggest account, my crown jewel, suddenly shared credit with none other than Trevor, the office's favorite collector of unearned praise. He casually sliced into the cupcake with a flimsy plastic knife, while informing me that payroll would be holding my commission until they sorted out discrepancies. With crumbs still on his lips, he added that the legal team wanted to clean up some contract language, as if that explained anything at all. I kept my expression calm because I understood exactly what was happening. Months earlier, while he was away at a corporate golf retreat, I had uncovered a quiet clause tucked into the client renewal documents, a clause I negotiated after 3 relentless weekends. Clause 14b. A point of contact transition rule that paused their renewal if the representative changed. In plain English, if I was removed from their account, the contract froze and the client had to reassess who they trusted. But I didn't mention that. I simply watched the red frosting on his lip and said, "I'm sure everything will work out." Then I stood, excused myself politely, and walked back to my desk as if my world wasn't shifting beneath my feet. Once seated, I opened my laptop and sent 2 emails. One to my attorney. One to the client's CEO. Subject line: moving forward, new representation. Payroll might have forgotten about my commission, but they had no idea I'd been quietly constructing something far more durable than their spreadsheets. Under my maiden name, I had rented a tiny office, barely big enough for a desk and ambition, and formed a brand new LLC. I purchased a custom domain, built a private CRM system from scratch, and even recruited a finance coordinator from a rival firm who was so eager to escape her toxic workplace that she joined for half her former salary and the promise of a fresh start. And as a small precaution, I also bought the URL of my old agency's name, plus the word sucks, just in case it ever became useful. By the time Monday arrived, my plan was already in motion, humming beneath the surface like a machine no one realized existed. I walked into the office later than usual, no coffee, no makeup, just a thumb drive in my pocket and a calm so deep it felt like armor. Trevor waved at me from across the bullpen, unaware that the ground beneath his borrowed glory was about to shift. The CEO's assistant tried to corner me about a quarterly presentation, but I only nodded, letting them all continue believing everything was normal. At exactly 10:07 a.m., an email blast went out from the client's internal PR team. The message was short, polished, and devastating to the agency. They would not be renewing their contract. They expressed appreciation for the past 5 years and announced they were transitioning to a boutique firm with stronger alignment and deeper insight. A stillness fell over the office. Then chaos erupted, screens flashing, chairs spinning, panic spreading like static electricity. Trevor stared at his monitor, mouth opening and closing like he was trying to find words that no longer existed. My manager, frosting still clinging to the edge of his beard, slammed his office door so forcefully the metal frame shuddered. I simply opened a new tab, typed in the agency's unflattering domain I'd purchased, and allowed myself the smallest smile. The first person to break down wasn't my manager, it was Kara from PR, the soft-spoken one who always wore pastel sweaters. She read the client's announcement and whispered, "Oh no, that was our account," as her peppermint tea trembled in her hand. But it wasn't theirs anymore. They still didn't realize I had been the quiet foundation holding up their entire revenue pyramid. While Trevor attended endless networking nights trying to charm people who weren't even in our industry, I had been building, strategizing, and delivering. Not only had the client left, they announced it publicly. I had even helped them choose the perfect phrasing. Values misalignment. I knew exactly which industry newsletter would feature it, and how quickly it would spread. By the time the office printer began spitting out frantic strategy documents, the story was already going viral. At 10:15, the conference room door was locked. I wasn't invited in, but through the frosted glass I could see their silhouettes. My boss pacing, legal whispering, HR sweating over a laptop. Trevor sat stiff in his closer of the quarter hoodie, the same one he bragged about after I signed 3 major clients he later pretended were his. He looked like someone who had shown up to a formal event wearing the wrong costume. Meanwhile, I opened Slack and typed a simple reminder. Compensation is how you retain talent, not how you pressure it. 3 reactions appeared. Then 11. And then suddenly the post vanished, deleted by an admin. So I posted it again, this time in bold, adding a screenshot of the missing commission line from my paycheck, and the timestamp of my unanswered email to payroll. 2 minutes later, my email access was revoked. 3 minutes after that, my key card deactivated. 5 minutes later, they tried to escort me out. The junior HR associate sent to collect me looked like she wanted to cry. "I'm so sorry, they told me to," she whispered, voice trembling. I gently interrupted her. "You can tell them I'm leaving, but not because they forced me." She blinked. Are you quitting?" I handed her a folder containing my formal resignation, the email chain, and a signed letter confirming my position at my new agency, founder and managing partner. Before walking out, I paused to take in the view. Rows of cubicles, fluorescent glare, tired office plants collecting dust. This place once felt like a ladder. Now it resembled a filing cabinet full of faded promises and outdated motivational posters. I didn't look back. What they still hadn't realized was that I wasn't the only one walking away. The next morning, I woke up to 37 unread messages, 5 from LinkedIn, 16 from former coworkers, and 1 from a college roommate who hadn't spoken to me in 8 years but suddenly wanted to catch up about career changes. The rest were from clients, some cautious, some overly formal, some passive-aggressive, but one message stood out from the noise. It read, "We'd love to hear your strategic vision without the corporate filter." I didn't respond right away. Silence can speak louder than any pitch deck, and I knew the agency was scrambling to repair the damage while I was quietly preparing for my next move. Every hour they scrambled, I stabilized. Every mistake they made became another opportunity for me to grow. But let's rewind for a moment. While I was still at the agency, I wasn't just nurturing revenue. I was nurturing loyalty. I didn't dismiss assistants, didn't ignore interns, didn't withhold credit from the designers or analysts who supported every major win. Not because I'm some sort of workplace saint, but because I understood that respect creates roots. And when the metaphorical storm hit, those roots held. Miguel, the quiet, brilliant data analyst who once fixed a complex dashboard bug at 2 a.m., while executives blamed each other, messaged first. "I'm done being blamed for problems I didn't create. Where can I send my resume?" He wrote. He wasn't the last. Arushi from Strategy messaged next. Then Lexi from Copy, whose work was often overshadowed by louder voices in meetings. And then poetic, almost musical, 3 clients reached out within the same hour. Every single one of them said the same thing. "We didn't realize you were the one holding everything together." They were right, of course. Because while Trevor was busy practicing his swing at golf retreats under the guise of networking, I was learning real details about clients, details that built trust. I knew the names of their partners, their favorite restaurants, the small challenges they never mentioned in boardrooms. The agency sold metrics, I built relationships. By Thursday, my new agency, barely a week old, already had its first set of contracts signed. We shared a Google Drive, had a Slack workspace humming, and even secured a graphic designer in Croatia who charged $12 an hour, but produced work that looked like it belonged to a billion-dollar studio. Meanwhile, the agency I left behind began erasing their online presence. Client lists vanished, their blog went dark, pages returned errors. That was the day the final spark ignited. An anonymous account posted a viral thread titled, "How to Lose an Agency's Soul in 90 Days." It wasn't violent, it was factual, detailed, and merciless in its accuracy. Screenshots of Slack messages, redacted emails, commission disputes, HR delays, it was all there. And at the end, the thread linked directly to my new agency. By noon, the thread had more than 40,000 likes. By 2 p.m., my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. It was the CEO's assistant, her voice tight with stress, informing me that the agency was in full crisis mode. She didn't ask me to return, she asked if I was hiring. I sipped my coffee, let the silence stretch just long enough to send a message, and replied, "We'll be in touch." By Friday, the agency was struggling publicly. A massive discussion appeared on an industry forum calling them out for their disorganization and treatment of staff. Stories poured in: missed payments, broken promises, inexplicable turnover. One comment gained more than 1,000 upvotes in an afternoon. Rumor is their top enterprise strategist left and took half the agency with her. I didn't correct them. By Saturday, the story had grown. Journalists were now circling. By Saturday morning, the industry's leading advertising journal released an article that landed with the force of a spotlight aimed at the truth. It was titled, "When Companies Undervalue Their Best Talent: The Quiet Decline of Halden and Company." A name change, but the implications were unmistakable. The piece featured an old, unflattering conference photo of my former manager blinking mid-sentence, captured years ago. The subheadline made the message even sharper. Sources reveal the firm failed to retain the strategist responsible for its largest accounts, now facing mass client departures. My name wasn't printed, but everyone knew. By the time the article finished circulating, I was already 3 client contracts deep, each one suddenly liberated from the red tape they'd once been tangled in. Now they messaged me directly instead of navigating corporate layers. Some wrote at midnight, others first thing in the morning. Every note carried the same themes: relief, excitement, trust. But nothing surprised me more than the message from Trevor. He emailed like it was 2015, trying to sound casual. "Hey, we had our differences. Maybe we should grab a drink? Looks like you've got momentum. Maybe we could team up." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to my team with the subject line: "Team building exercise. Identify the opportunist." Lexi replied with a gif of a raccoon chewing through a power cable. Arushi responded with a single word: blocked. It was the most accurate feedback loop I'd ever seen. But then, something unexpected happened. An envelope arrived at my apartment. No return address, just my name written in formal cursive. Inside was a check for exactly $38,200, the amount they had accidentally withheld from my commission. Attached was a note on corporate letterhead: "We hope this resolves any outstanding concerns. Wishing you the best." I didn't cash it, not immediately. I wanted to save it for something far more meaningful, and maybe a little poetic. And as fate would have it, the perfect opportunity was already scheduled. 2 weeks later, Halden and Company was set to sponsor a major leadership summit, keynote slots, booth placement, branded bags, the whole display. But here's the twist. I had purchased the rights to the name of their former booth branding during my quiet preparations. I now owned it, which meant I could secure their spotlight location before they even realized it was available. So I did. Front and center, prime floor space. I called Miguel and said, "Let's create something memorable." He asked, "A shrine to what?" I smiled and answered, "A tribute to remembering what others overlook." The summit opened with the familiar scent of ambition, stale coffee, polished shoes, and too much cologne. Everywhere you looked, the room buzzed with entrepreneurs rehearsing their pitches and sales reps adjusting their name badges, each one hoping to impress someone who might not remember them tomorrow. Booths lined the hall like pop-up kingdoms. AI startups promising revolutions no one believed in, branding firms with minimalist logos and bowls of half-melted candy, consultants handing out pens no one wanted. And right in the center, our booth. We didn't need flashing lights or oversized props. Just a matte black backdrop with crisp white text that read, "Remember who built your growth." It stopped people mid-stride. Some tilted their heads, confused. Others smiled like they instantly understood. We didn't hand out branded pins or stress balls. Instead, we distributed mock pay statements designed to resemble Halden and Company's payroll interface. Each one displayed the same bold line. Commission. $0 status. Under review. Attendees picked them up, stared, and exchanged looks that said everything. Lexi worked the booth wearing sunglasses like a guarded celebrity. Miguel set up a looping reel on a large screen, titled Case Studies in Forgetfulness. It showed animated timelines of clients migrating away from outdated agencies and toward ours. Every few seconds, another dot drifted across the screen like it had found its home. The final slide was my favorite. We don't poach. We rescue. Around noon, the atmosphere shifted. You could feel tension slip into the room before the executives themselves appeared. The leadership team from Halden and Company finally walked in, wearing matching corporate polos loaded with forced optimism. Even from across the hall, you could sense their anxiety. Trevor saw me first. His face twitched in that unmistakable way, like he'd accidentally bitten into something metallic. He whispered something to the man beside him, pretending to casually stroll past our booth while his eyes screamed in disbelief. But then came the one I had been waiting for. My former manager. No cupcake this time, just a clenched jaw that looked one stressful moment away from fracturing. He stopped abruptly when he saw the backdrop, the pay stubs, the looping visuals. And then the moment that froze him completely, he spotted their former client's VP of operations standing beside me, laughing as we chatted. We weren't even discussing business, just dogs and good bourbon, but the optics were devastating to him. He started walking toward us with a stiff, overly controlled stride, the kind corporate leaders use when they want to look composed but are barely holding it together. Before he could reach me, I turned and called out, "Hi, Michael. Glad you made it." He froze mid-step. His eyes darted between me and the VP as if trying to decide which disaster to address first. I picked up one of the mock pay statements and offered it to him. He accepted out of reflex muscle memory from years of grabbing control where he could. He looked down, read the line, and paused just long enough for the cameras to catch it. What he didn't know was that we had 2 photographers on contract, one posing as event media, one disguised as an attendee. Within hours, the photo of him holding a $0 commission slip in front of a booth he thought he owned began circulating across social platforms. The caption took on a life of its own. "When you forget to pay her, but she forgets nothing." By the weekend, our website had so much traffic it temporarily crashed. By Monday morning, 6 new clients had scheduled introductory calls, each message more enthusiastic than the last. Meanwhile, Trevor attempted his own form of public recovery. He posted a lengthy article on his professional profile titled "Leadership Means Knowing When to Release Control." The post featured a dramatic selfie of him hiking alone on a misty trail, as if solitude could rebrand accountability. Only one person reacted to it, his mother. But the real shock arrived before sunrise when Miguel messaged me in a panic. "Are you awake? Check everything: email, messages, social feeds. Brace yourself." I sat up, heart thudding with that strange mix of dread and curiosity that only big news brings. Then I opened my inbox. The subject line read, "Confidential. Internal Halden files, do not forward." The sender was a burner Gmail address, but the message inside was unmistakably authentic. Attached was a zipped folder and a single sentence. "They're trying to blame you for everything. Thought you should know." I hesitated only for a second before dragging the file into a secure sandbox. Inside were internal memos, meeting recordings, strategy decks, an entire crisis playbook. They had launched something called Project Renewal, but the real name embedded in the metadata was far more honest: Project Phoenix. The goal: rewrite my departure as sabotage from a discontented former employee. They planned to quietly imply I was unstable to shake client confidence. There were even drafted talking points suggesting selective leaks of Slack messages to portray me as overly emotional after late-night deadlines. A slide labeled Media Strategy proposed pitching a story to industry press titled, "When High Performers Crack Under Pressure." They had an entire analysis dedicated to me. A full SWOT breakdown. My weaknesses column included phrases like, emotional risk, no formal MBA, and potentially unpredictable. But the last line of the threats column said everything. "She's outperforming us. She's winning." Oddly, I didn't feel angry. I felt clear, sharply, powerfully clear. They had never valued me, not during the late nights fixing their broken systems, not during the weekends salvaging client decks, not even when I carried 60% of the enterprise revenue alone. They didn't just withhold my commission. They assumed I'd quietly accept it forever. But now I had their entire strategy in my hands. I forwarded the folder to Lexi. She didn't reply with text. She sent a 30-second audio clip of hysterical, uncontrollable laughter. By noon, our team was already outlining a response, not a public attack but a quiet, strategic countermeasure. We didn't publish anything. That would be too easy, too obvious. Instead, we started whispering back. We gave clients subtle reassurance. If anything is said about me, feel free to ask. I can provide documentation. Our new hires received the Project Phoenix files as onboarding context, and the effect was electric. It galvanized them. Even gentle, soft-spoken Kara from PR posted a cryptic message online. Amazing how quickly support disappears when you're no longer useful to them. It spread across the industry within hours. But the real turning point arrived that Friday afternoon. A journalist from a major tech and business publication, the very one Halden and Company had tried to persuade with their discontented employee narrative, reached out to me directly. "I've seen the internal deck," she said. "All of it. Would you like to comment before we publish?" I paused, then said, "Only if I can write the final paragraph." She agreed. I opened a blank document, took a breath, and typed a single line. They didn't lose me because I broke. They lost me because they believed I would stay silent. And I hit send. The article dropped on a Tuesday. Not a soft news Friday, not a distracted Monday, Tuesday. The day professionals are most alert, caffeinated, and paying attention. Its title was calm, almost gentle but sharpened underneath like a glass edge. The Cost of Silence. When companies rewrite the truth, and employees rewrite their futures. My quote was the final line, exactly as I'd written it. It hit harder than I expected. The article didn't name Halden and Company outright, but it didn't have to. The descriptions, the timeline, the patterns, the anonymous sources. Everyone in the industry connected the dots in 30 seconds. By noon, their PR team had released a statement so overpolished it could have doubled as a dental brochure. It was exactly what I predicted. Full of ongoing internal restructuring, commitment to transparency, and unfortunate misunderstandings. But the real storm wasn't the article. It was the comments. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Former employees, people I'd never even met, sharing their stories. Delayed bonuses, vanished promotions, blame shifts, projects stolen, gaslighting wrapped in corporate buzzwords. Every new comment was a brick in a wall they could no longer climb. By the afternoon, Halden's LinkedIn page turned into a wildfire. They tried to delete the negative comments. They tried to lock down the posts. They even tried posting a photo of the CEO standing with a shelter dog, captioned, "Leadership means compassion." The top comment under the post read, "Pay your staff." Meanwhile, my phone buzzed non-stop. Not from drama, clients. Big ones. Ones who had been unreachable for years suddenly wanted meetings. I scheduled more calls in 48 hours than I had in my entire last quarter at Halden. Then came the moment I'll never forget. My old CEO himself finally reached out. I hadn't heard his voice since he congratulated Trevor on closing a multi-million-dollar partnership I had personally built during 6 months of back-to-back flights. His email subject line was simple. A conversation? Inside it read, "Given recent events, I believe it would be beneficial for both of us to reconnect. Would you be open to a discussion regarding potential collaboration or a role in our new strategic leadership initiative?" Collaboration. Leadership initiative. It was corporate for, "We are sinking, and we need the person who kept us afloat." I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I drafted my reply. I kept it short, graceful, professional. "Thank you for reaching out. At this time, my agency is focused on forward momentum, not revisiting past partnerships." And then, because I couldn't resist, I added one final line. "Best of luck with Project Phoenix." I hit send and closed my laptop with the type of satisfaction usually reserved for movie endings. But the story didn't end there. 2 days later, an unexpected email landed in my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. It was from the board chair of a Fortune 100 company. Their message was concise, assertive, and thrilling. Your leadership under adversity has been noted. We'd like to discuss a multi-year consulting relationship. Are you available next week? I sat back, feeling the weight of it all. The months of being overlooked, underestimated, underpaid. And now? I wasn't just seen. I was sought. The following week, I walked into the tallest building downtown. The kind with mirrored glass so reflective it forces you to straighten your posture before you even reach the door. The lobby was quiet, expensive, deliberate. Everything about it whispered, "Only the bold make it this far." I wasn't nervous. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking into someone else's company trying to prove my worth. I was walking in as the CEO of my own. The meeting with the Fortune 100 board chair lasted 2 hours. We discussed restructuring, talent retention, cross-functional productivity, brand integrity. Every topic Halden always claimed was too strategic for me. She asked thoughtful, challenging questions. I answered every one without blinking. When the meeting ended, she extended her hand and said, "We don't want to hire your former employer. We want to hire the person who made them worth paying attention to in the first place." And then she slid a folder across the table. Inside, a consulting contract so substantial I read it twice, then a third time to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. It wasn't a door opening. It was a gate. When I walked out of the building, the air felt different. Lighter. Sharper. I wasn't just free, I was in motion. But the universe wasn't done with its final twist. As I crossed the plaza outside, a familiar voice called out behind me, "Hey, wait." I turned slowly. It was Trevor. He jogged toward me, out of breath, looking like a man who had Googled how to apologize on the walkover. He stopped a few feet away, hands on his knees, catching his breath. "Look," he said. "Everything's falling apart. They're saying you took clients. They're saying you stole people. They're trying to pin this whole thing on you. But I know it wasn't you. I know you didn't sabotage anything." His voice cracked on the word no. For the first time, he looked small. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch, the kind of silence that shows the difference between us now, what I had built, and what he had clung to. I finally said, "Trevor, the only thing I took was responsibility for my own future." He opened his mouth to respond, but I had already turned away. That night, I gathered my new team on a video call. Faces lit by laptop screens, Miguel, Lexi, Arushi, Kara, and 3 new hires who had joined us in the chaos. I told them about the multi-year contract, the expansion, and what came next. They didn't cheer, they exhaled. The kind of exhale that only comes when you realize you're finally somewhere safe. I ended the call with the words I wish someone had said to me long ago. "We don't build companies here. We build people. The rest follows." Later that night, as I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by quiet and soft lamplight, I opened the old envelope, the one with my unpaid commission check. I finally knew what to do with it. We used it to fund our team's first wellness stipend. Everyone picked something different: therapy, new glasses, noise-canceling headphones, pottery classes, a week off. The money they withheld from me became the money that healed the people they had burned out. Halden and Company, on the other hand? They announced a merger 3 months later. A polite corporate euphemism for, "We didn't survive." The industry barely noticed. My agency grew fast but intentionally, thoughtfully, sustainably. Not because we wanted revenge. Because we wanted better. And sometimes late at night I still think about that spreadsheet, the one where my commission line was blank. It's funny. The only thing they ever refused to give me was the thing that started everything. If this story hit home for you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today.